Come, take your place at the Scions' side as guardians of Eorzea, and together we shall fight for the freedom of all! For the freedom of all!
For the freedom of all. This was the motto of the company known as the Crystal Braves. It was founded as a noble ideal of what a grand company of Eorzea could be, but quickly descended into the very shadows they were courageous to fend off. We will explore the full history of this company, and afterwards examine the reasons for its collapse. This is the rise and fall of the Crystal Braves. The idea that would soon take shape in the form of the Crystal Braves began with a gathering of the Eorzean leadership in Mordona, not long after the defeat of the 14th Imperial Legion and destruction of the Ultima weapon. Standing side by side, they proclaimed that a new era of peace and prosperity had dawned, and that the 7th Umbral era, which came in the wake of the calamity at Carteneau, was over. This, they proclaimed, was the dawn of the 7th Astral Era.
Let it be writ that on this day, by the light of the crystal, Eorzea ushered in a new era. The 7th Astral Era is come, and thus is ours a Realm Reborn.
The history of the Realm of Eorzea is split into eras, both Umbral and Astral. Umbral eras come in the wake of a calamity, such as with the one ushered in with Bahamut's emergence, or the past calamities responsible for the downfall of Eorzea's greatest empires and civilizations. Once the realm has settled and stability is restored once more, an Astral Era is proclaimed, to show the realm is now in a state of growth and prosperity. The 7th Umbral Era only lasted a few years before it ended. This is not uncommon, as the previous ones didn't last nearly as long as their astral counterparts, with some of them lasting for centuries. As the gathered crowd celebrated this new era, one group felt that this declaration, while welcome, was premature. No one felt more strongly about this than Alphinaud, who could see that grave threats were still in the shadows ready to strike. And their fears were proven right but minutes later, when a deafening roar shook the realm.
What was that?
That roar. It can't be.
Did you hear that?
The elder primal Bahamut yet lived, being kept alive deep below the surface of Eorzea, thanks to Allagan machinations. Both he and the other primals were still a grave threat to Eorzea, and indeed to the planet itself, as were the shadowy Ascians who laboured to unmake the realm, and whose plans and purpose at this time were yet unclear. In the aftermath of the dawn of the new era, the city-states wished to further strengthen the bonds they had created when combating the Garlean threat. However, each of them was still plagued by issues within their own borders, and they first and foremost turned inwards to resolve them.
Do not presume that you have knowledge of our every concern. The Garleans and the Beast Tribes are but two of many. My duty is to my country and my people. Lest you doubt, Limsa comes first, then the Alliance, and finally, circumstances permitting, Ishgard and the rest. If you cannot understand so simple a concept, then you have no place at this table.
As a result, it fell to the Scions of the Seventh Dawn to hold the line against the very real threats to the realm. Though experts in this field and perfectly suited to combat this threat, the Scions of the Seventh Dawn at this time were in a weakened state. The Scions were founded in the wake of the calamity, and performed their duties in the shadows. However, they were forced into the light after the attack on the Waking Sands, and in thanks to their efforts to help end the threat of Ultima Weapon. The city-states, however, were not blind to any of this, and indeed were already in the process of deliberations regarding the formation of a grand company of Eorzea. The basic premise of this company was to defend the realm against threats that a single city-state could not do alone, a Garlean invasion being a great example, which required the strength of all three states and their grand companies. But like with everything when it comes to politics, these things take time, and in fact it would take Eorzea over a decade to see it come to pass. The fact that Ishgard was still isolated from the realm was also a contributing factor, standing in the way of such a grand company. Forming it without the participation of the other city-states would only have served to widen the rift between them. The enemies of the realm would not wait, however. Alphinaud saw this, and also took note of the continuous strain that combating these threats was taking on the Scions. Thus he approached his comrades with a bold proposition. His idea was to create a trial company. It would be much smaller in scale than a grand company, but would be capable of unrestricted operation, much like how the Scions currently operate. In essence, he proposed the creation of a military arm for the Scions. It was his hope that the success of such a company would lend much needed weight and momentum to the Eorzean alliance in their plans to form the Grand Company of Eorzea. Since this company would be a military force in much the same vein as a Grand Company, it would thus operate under the direct command of the Scions. This was to ensure the force was not misused, and importantly to quell any fears the city-states may have of its operations. Alphinaud said it best in the end. The Scions worked tirelessly to protect Eorzea and its people, but as you yourself have witnessed with the refugee revolt, there are limitations to what even we can achieve. With this new company under the Scions' command, however, we will be capable of responding to a wider range of difficulties, without straining our resources or overtaxing your formidable talents. The Scions had a positive response to this proposition, as did the Warrior of Light. But before any actions could be taken, they needed to bring it to the attention of the leadership of the Eorzean Alliance, and get their official approval. Alphinaud and the Warrior of Light travelled to each city-state for said approval, while also recruiting members for the company. Each city-state gave their approval for the company's formation, however each was careful not to pledge their own individual support.
The Crystal Braves are yours to command, Alphinaud. Do what you will. We shall pray for your success.
The Sultana, Nanamo ul Namo, had her own misgivings about the idea, primarily due to where the funds for such a company would be coming from.
Does it not concern you that a significant proportion of its financial backing came from the coffers of the Syndicate? That those unprincipled worms might forge this extraordinary gathering of warriors into a private army?
This was where the warning signs started to show, but it was only with the benefit of hindsight that we truly saw what we were walking into. Speaking with Alphinaud after our visit to the city-states, he had something to say on the matter. You are concerned at the Syndicate's involvement, as am I. Thus was the origin of every coin of their contribution carefully scrutinized and recorded. This organization will not be built on corruption. Naturally, I would prefer not to rely on outside sources at all, but even my family's substantial coffers could not sustain a venture of this magnitude. And as for the rumors and doubts surrounding this enterprise, well, I'm sure things shall plague us until the company has had a chance to prove its worth. It will not be an easy process, but we will earn the people's trust one success at a time. The wheels were now firmly in motion, and as the company was founded, recruits came from all across the realm and made their way to Mordona for the establishment.
Comrades, your presence here this day signifies the momentous choice that each of you has made. With your strength now pledged to the Scions of the Seventh Dawn, you are beholden to no single nation. You stand as the vanguard for a united Eorzea. From this moment forth, I declare you Crystal Braves. Let us mend this fractured realm and face our enemies as one. Whether it be the Beastmen and their primals, or the conflict in Carteneau, it is plain that the nations of Eorzea cannot solve the problems which plague the realm. Thus does it fall to some few heroic souls to succeed where they have failed. Come, take your place at the Scion's side as guardians of Eorzea, and together we shall fight for the freedom of all! For the freedom of all!
The Crystal Braves were now officially established and active. Their military commander would be Ilbert, an old friend of Raubon and fellow Alamegan.
Hilbert, you old scoundrel. When they told me you'd be visiting, I scarce believed my ears.
Alphino would be the head of the company as Crystal Brave commander, and the entire company would ultimately report to Milphilia as leader of the Scions. The company split its members into 4 units, designated Brave Units 1st, 2nd, 3rd and 4th. The Crystal Braves and the Scions wasted no time in putting their newfound influx of allies to good use.
These are welcome tidings indeed. Given the sensitive nature of the task, I could not rely on one of my own.
Word that the Braves had already spread across the realm, and they had received anonymous reports of Guardian agents operating clandestinely within one of the Grand Companies. Since the Braves were independent, it was likely the only avenue the informants could turn to.
So it is we who have been compromised. Teleji Adeleji's machinations have shaken Ul'dah to her foundations. In such uncertain times, a man's loyalty may be bought for a fistful of gil.
The Braves wasted no time and dispatched the first unit to Ul'dah, while the rest remained on standby until required. This was to be the primary mission of the company during their lifespan, and it would be a long drawn out mission to uncover the full truth about the spy known as the Ivy, and the network of spies she controlled. Alongside this, the Brave served as our aid during the Scions' missions to confront new primals being summoned by the Beast Tribes, as well as assisting us with missions where manpower was required. As the months wore on, the Crystal Braves were operating in all corners of the realm, acting as the Scions' eyes, ears, and if needed, sword and shield. The Brave unit stood side by side with the Warrior of Light, on their mission to learn more about the mysterious Lady Iceheart, as well as help defend the gates of Ishgard from an attack by the Dravanian horde. The Warrior of Light in return aided the Braves as they hunted the Ivy, now revealed to be Raubon's second in command, Flame Marshal Aileen Weil. They pursued her across the length of Eorzea until she was captured and brought to justice. As the first major mission they were tasked with, her capture and the rooting out of all other spies within the Grand Companies proved to be a resounding success, and proved what a benefit a Grand Company of Eorzea could be, modelled after the Crystal Braves. However, this would be the last time the Braves would be lauded as heroes, for their fall would paint their azure uniforms red with blood and treachery.
This man stands accused of poisoning Her Royal Majesty Nanamo Ul Namo, and as suspected accessories to the crime, all members of the Scions of the Seventh Dawn will be detained for questioning.
In a swift yet well-planned move, half the members of the Crystal Braves turned on the Scions and their allies. It came to a head when Brave units took Alphino and the other Scions into custody in the Rising Stones.
Sir, barring a few exceptions, we have detained all those with allegiance to the Scions. The Rising Stones is also under our control.
And what do you hope to achieve with this mutiny?
Why, that which we have striven for all along, Commander. The salvation of Eorzea.
At the same time, they put down any resistance within their own ranks, lumping them in with the Scions as traitors. The final move was to happen at the celebration, which we now know as the Bloody Banquet, where Ilbert would turn on everyone, standing with his monstrous allies, and captured the Warrior of Light and rest of the Scions.
How unlike you, old friend. I did not expect to take your arm so easily. Shall I tell you who really killed your precious Sultana? It was me.
You die!
From that day forth, the Crystal Braves operated under the command of Lolorito, Ilbert and the Monitress of Ul'dah, as each made their own power moves. The ambitions of Ilbert and those that served him, however, would be the Braves' final downfall. Ilbert sought to have Raubon executed, but this went directly against the wishes of Lolorito, and he himself now considered the Braves a threat to Ul'dah, so he instantly cut his ties with them, and the Syndicate stopped the flow of funding. Soon after, the Scions' names were cleared of any wrongdoing, and they were allowed to return to the Rising Stones. Alphinaud had the remaining Braves that would answer his call gather in the Rising Stones, those members who stood true to the Braves and the Scions' ideals, and officially disbanded the company. As thanks for the service those steadfast Braves had given in the aftermath of the Bloody Banquet, they were officially allowed to join the Scions of the Seventh Dawn. As for Ilbert and his followers, they were declared as criminals, but by this time were already long gone, making plans of their own in the east of the realm, on the borders of Alamigo. That is a quick A to Z of the Crystal Braves. So, what happened? How was it that the Crystal Braves fell so quickly in the end, and indeed so destructively that it nearly destroyed the Scions, and set the progress of a Grand Company of Eorzea back for years? The truth of it is, the Crystal Braves was a flawed organisation from the onset, and even before the ripened apple that was the Crystal Braves would fall from the tree, it was already consumed with rot. There were a number of reasons and failed or flawed decisions that led to the Braves' downfall. The first of these happened long before the company was established. As mentioned earlier, Alphinaud visited each city-state to get their approval for the founding of the company. While they did grant their approval, that's pretty much as far as it went, as they offered no further support than that. What this meant is that the Crystal Braves did not have the protection of the city-states, unlike what a Grand Company has. There would be little monetary support from the city-states either, which left the door open for others to provide the needed coinage. This is where the Syndicate of Ul'dah enters the picture. The Syndicate is made up of wealthy and influential merchants in Ul'dah society. While power would seem to fully rest with the Sultanate at this time, it was the Syndicate who really held it. Only a half-dozen chairs made up the Syndicate, and behind closed doors it was broken up into 3 factions. The Monitarists are the first sub-faction, whose ultimate aim is self-governance in Ul'dah, thus opposing the Sultanate. They are opposed by the Royalists, who seek to protect and strengthen the current monarchy. Then you have those who walk the line between the two, whose only desire is Ul'dah's prosperity. With the Syndicate being the primary backer of the Crystal Braves, Alphinaud knew the funds coming from them needed to be monitored and recorded. This, however, was an error in judgment. Instead of ensuring the funds were genuine gains, he should have been looking at who the primary donors were. In this case, the funds were mainly coming from the Monitarists, who had their own plans in mind for the Crystal Braves. It seems the people of Ul'dah knew to be wary of this even before we did. As we sought out recruits for the Braves in Ul'dah, we chanced to speak with Landbert, a refugee of Alamigo, and someone with his ear to the ground. Here's what he had to say when we spoke at the Crystal Braves. Aye, you'd be surprised what rumours drift down to Pearl Lane. I know of this glorious new company of yours, and just how far I'd go to avoid getting involved with it. Whispers on the street say your organisation is funded by corrupt coin, by syndicate money. If you think you're recruiting for a just cause, then you're a bigger fool than I took you for. My advice, soldier? Cut your ties and run. Your shining company will be naught but a puppet that dances to the syndicate's tune. Indeed, this was the biggest contributing factor for the fall of the Braves. Its members fell quickly into the monstrous pockets, and they secretly controlled the company even before its founding. They did this through individuals like Ilbert, who was already in their pocket long before the Crystal Braves was established. It was through him that the monsters controlled the Braves so easily. We can only appreciate our blindness with the benefit of hindsight, and the decisions made to make the Braves a reality. But we are not innocent either. Decisions were made, and the things we saw, ignored or didn't act upon are just as much to blame. Our recruitment methods are a prime example. As we ventured through the city-states, we recruited many people to the cause, most of them just and true, and some who are Scions to this very day. However, we also recruited the wrong sort. People like Laurentius. Oh gods, can it truly be you? By what fickle fortune must the first face I see upon my release be yours? If you don't remember him, he was a wood whaler who collaborated with the Garleans, and one we helped apprehend. I was selling maps and supplies to the Garleans, before you and those red-belly poachers mopped the forest floor with my erstwhile employers. Recruiting, eh? And what is your policy on reformed convicts? As matters stand, the wood whalers will have naught more to do with me. This may be just the second chance I was looking for. I shall leave at once. You shall not regret this, I promise you. I am a changed man. We always see the best in others, but we should have been more careful. We were still young at the time, always smiling at the end of a dungeon exploration, before the weight of our experiences taught us our lessons. Laurentius and Yuyuhase are two of the main culprits of the Braves turning on the Scions. Yuyuhase is a great example of seeing the warning signs get louder and louder. When we first met him in Mordona, he stated he was once a humble Aetherite guard in Ul'dah, and eagerly jumped at the chance to join the Crystal Braves when they came knocking. The coin it would bring was no small influence, for he was always struggling with empty pockets. Now that's an innocent enough reason to join a military organisation, and one I'm sure was shared by others. As time went on, each time we saw Yuyuhase however, we watched his demeanour sour. When we were in pursuit of the Ivy, Yuyuhase ran with us to deliver a message. Was that really necessary? I had better be compensated for the additional exertion you caused me. During a skirmish with the Garlean forces when he fought alongside us. More reinforcements? They really aren't paying me enough. I've more than earned my coin already. In the end, it was Ilbert offering him a leadership role in the future Alamigo that made him fully side with the rebellion, and he indeed took a great amount of pleasure in it. Laurentius by all rights likely joined the Braves for genuine reasons, to properly turn his life around. The likelihood is, however, Ilbert would have quickly offered him the coin he desired, and from there his fall was complete. I wish this was the only time it happened, but it seemed to be happening more and more as time wore on. An air of discontent began to form within the Braves, with honourable members such as Rio picking up on it and investigating in the shadows. Rio had a very experienced background and was already the stuff of legends when he joined the Crystal Braves. Not long after he joined, he could already see warning signs and investigated on his own. He knew he could confide in us and told us everything. One of the first incidents was shipments of black market arms going missing, and both Ilbert and Yuyuhase had conflicting stories about it. As we were preparing to lead the Braves to Ishgard to defend against the Dravanian horde, Rio told us that Wilred, another member of the Braves, had gone missing. Wilred was a young Huer who lived in Little Alamigo. He took an instant interest in the Braves and happily signed up, but like others he quickly started to see something was wrong and investigated the company's ledgers. Apparently he found something pretty quickly, most likely a record of bribery from the monetarists, or the funds being funneled to corrupt Braves members. Sadly, Wilred was led into the wild and slain by rebellious braves in order to keep him silent. Riol could see this all playing out, and even warned us before we went to the bloody banquet that something bad was about to happen. If we had heeded his words, maybe history would have played out different. All of this corruption finds its way back to Lolorito and Teleji of the Syndicate, who held all the cards and pulled all the strings of the Crystal Braves, all to serve their own ends. Ilbert was taking their money and their support, all with his own agenda, and the Braves served no other purpose for him than to see it realized. In the end, it was our choice to form this company, and our choice to take Syndicate money. It was our naivety that led to their downfall, and indeed to the near downfall of the Scions.
'Tis all my doing. I believed myself the only one who truly understood Eorzea's woes, and look what that arrogance has wrought. I gave commands, influenced governments with my certainty. I treated the Crystal Braves and even the Scions themselves as pawns in my great scheme to save the realm. But in my headlong rush into imagined glory, I paid no heed to the ground upon which I trod. The salvation of Eorzea. What was it that I hoped to achieve? Did I believe that I could rid the realm of every danger and difficulty? That I could defeat the Empire and the Ascians, and find homes for every refugee? Oh yes, I was so very clever. Become a guardian of Eorzea, I implored, and sat back to watch my perfect army cleanse the land of chaos. 'Twas all but a means to feed my own vanity. Only when all is lost do I finally realize the truth.
But the lessons were learned, both by the Scions and the city-states, and would be put into practice when the time finally came to form the Grand Company of Eorzea, which stands today as the ideal of what the Crystal Braves aspire to be. But there you have it, the rise and fall of the Crystal Braves.